Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie Gilchrist, and I'm broadcasting from Augusta, Georgia. My broadcast is Esther's Purpose, and my guest today is Geri Mason, and we'll talk a little more about her in a moment. We are on WYTV7 from Charlotte, North Carolina. So what I want to let you know about WYTV7 is that we are a nonprofit organization, and we do take donations. Those donations are used for us to broadcast nationally and internationally. Our listeners are from all across the globe and are encouraged by our broadcast. Through Esther's Purpose, our listeners are those who have gone through ongoing trials of various kinds, and we want them to be able to stay on course and be encouraged by the testimonies from my guests, not only talking about what they went through, but also how they overcame and came out in victory and with purpose. So after that, now I want to introduce to you my guest. Again, her name is Geri Mason. Geri is from Richmond, Virginia, and she's currently living in Summerville, South Carolina. So Geri's not too far from me. She's lived there since December 2010. She is an author, she is a motivational speaker, and she's a writer. And she decided to create a platform for her gifts after being diagnosed with breast cancer in 1985. She adds value to the lives of others by sharing her many personal testimonies through her speaking, writing, and publications, because she assists people in appreciating the space between what they were and where they are while getting them excited about where they're going. I love that. So many times we get stuck, and you're right, Geri, we get stuck on what we could have been and what we might have been. But what Geri does is she reminds people through numerous metaphors and intertwining her personal story of everything that had happened to her and to you that's happening now. And so I want to introduce to you all Geri. Geri, hello. How are you today?
I am absolutely wonderful.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming on with us at WYTV7. I am so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So, Geri, before we start talking about what you're currently doing now that I just talked a little bit about that, I want you to talk to us about how did you get to Geri Speaks? Where were you originally before that ever transpired?
Basically, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1985, the way I started Geri Speak is because I shared my personal testimony and my story in a newspaper article. I was trying out, entered a contest to be on the cover, and I had no idea that I would actually get the cover. I was just putting my information out there. And they called me and told me that I was in the top 10. And when I got there, they told me that I actually had the cover.
Yes.
They told me that I was a good writer, so that started me to writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the article ran and the story was put out there, people started calling me and asking me to share my story in various settings, mostly towards teenagers, because at the time I wasn't that old. I was 30 years old, and I had just become, come out of being a single mom and a pregnant teenager and all of that, and then to be diagnosed with breast cancer at age 30. So I had a whole lot of story that I could tell on top of being diagnosed with breast cancer. So I shared my story with different avenues, and that started Geri Speak.
All right, so let's go back to the younger Geri, but prior to breast cancer. You just talked about it just a little bit, but I want you to share that with our audience, because with Esther's Purpose, the people who listen and who follow me, what they always know is I'm going to get to that story, that event in your life, because something occurred in your life that moved you to where you are now. And you talked about being a pregnant teen, did you say?
Yes.
All right, so will you talk to us from there? Do you mind sharing that with us today?
I don't mind at all. Basically, I got married at age 16, and I wasn't pregnant, but I did get married at age 16.
Okay.
But the whole 11 months later, I gave birth to a child, to my daughter, and the birth didn't work out. A year later, it was just me and my daughter, and I have a single parent like all the way through for both of my children, even though I've been married 3 times. I was a high school dropout. And a friend of the family basically said, just because you have a child does not mean that you cannot go back to school. Matter of fact, even go to college. I'm like, I don't think so. He was like, okay, I tell you what, you come work for me on the weekend and your mom will keep the baby and you go to school. You go back to school. So that's what I did. And from there, I went on to finish 4 years of college and got my degree in office administration. And my little girl went with me everywhere I went. She didn't stay on campus, but we got outside housing off of campus, and she lived with me. She went to the games. She was our little cheerleader at the games, and everybody loved her.
Yes. Well, tell me what that was like being married at 16 and then becoming a mom, you know, less than a year later. What was that like?
Basically, part of the reason, it goes back to my lifestyle that I was living at home. Part of the reason that I got married at 16 was because I wanted to leave home. And I'm being very vulnerable right now. I didn't expect this conversation to come up.
That's okay.
Part of the reason that I left home was because my mom's house was the place that you came on the weekend to buy your drinks and to get your fried chicken and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So have the best home environment. So me leaving home at age 16 and getting married was to move to a better home environment. And I moved in with my husband's aunt. He was 21 years old, so he was already a grown person, and she let us move in with him when I got married. So I was changing my scenario. That's basically what I was trying to do.
Wow, right.
Home place eventually, but my husband never really worked, and it became a problem for me. I was the one that was taking care of the household, taking care of the child, and everything. And so a year later, I just gave it all up.
Wow. So getting married then was really an escape for you.
It was an escape for me. Yes.
Right. So talk about a little bit about that environment at home for you that you wanted to escape from. Can you do that for me? Is that okay?
It's okay.
Okay.
There was alcohol involved, with my parents. There was violence involved with my parents. There was infidelity. My mom,
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't faithful to my dad, and he was my stepdad.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, it was like there was always something going on in my household. And also by me having a stepdad and not knowing my real father until I was 9 years old, then that scenario came in later on also. And I realized that this man that was always visiting us and was always bringing Christmas presents and bicycles and the gifts and stuff and all of that, that eventually I found out he was my true father, and I wondered why he was always around,
Right.
And he married also. So, it's just that type of environment. I just leave that type of environment, period.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that, Miss Geri. Thank you for going back. And I know it's difficult. It's difficult for me when I have to go back and do that. But I just want you to know that we here at WYTV7, through this broadcast at Esther's Purpose, we want to encourage people. We really want to we want to encourage them with, though you might had a bad start, no matter what happened in your life, that you can walk through that and come through that and do some great and mighty exploits for God. And there are times when, because we went through that, we're the ones who can really be the motivators to people. Because you know what the first thing we always say? If we just listen to Geri Speaks, and we know that came from breast cancer, right? So you'll immediately touch breast cancer people. But you know how many people you can touch also with that story in your young life, where somebody will perk up and hear you on WYTV7, because we're broadcasting across the globe, internationally and nationally. And you can touch somebody's life who said, wait a minute, what did she say? I'm living through that, or I went through that. Let me listen to her further, because I want to hear how she didn't let that stop her, how she didn't let that just hinder her, and she couldn't be the great person she is now. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome. That touched me, because you and I didn't even talk about that.
I know, because I've been kind of burying that. That's the reason I wrote my first book, because of leaving home and being pregnant and all that kind of stuff, and having my first child and all of that. And so that's some of the stuff that I kind of don't talk about, because it's so far in the past. I'm trying to talk more about what's happening right now.
Right. But you know that what gives us validity for what we do now is because what happened in the past.
Exactly.
Because sometimes when we listen to people, we always say, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't know what I've been through. I've been through some stuff and I just couldn't possibly do. No, hold on. So there are times when it's necessary. And I know how that feels like, because when I do my Esther's Purpose conferences, that's what I have to do. whether I'm sharing right now on WYTV7 or if I'm at my own conference that I do now annually here in Augusta, I am very transparent. And the level of my transparency allows my audience to relax and feel. And then it transitions them back. And then they can now get what they need from the conference. And even your ladies that are listening to you talk about breast cancer, because there are things that that our lives are opened up because of things that we've been through that can have physical manifestation, right? And I know you know that. And so those attacks, those things that happen to us from the enemy to actually stop us. So can you imagine where your life would have been if you had have let what you just shared with us stop you? We would have never known Geri Speaks, right?
Exactly. You wouldn't have. Yeah.
So talk to me about what you do with Geri Speaks. So let me bring you back, because I've got you back there in your past. Let me bring you back now to your current. All right, because I want to see that beautiful smile again. It's all right. So tell me tell me about your breast cancer journey. Give me a little bit of that.
Actually, I tell people that my breast cancer journey was very, very smooth. Like I said, I was diagnosed at age 30. And back then, I don't know what kind of chemo they had. I don't know what they were using, but I never lost my hair. Actually, my hair grew. I never had a reoccurrence. I didn't have any tragic stories with radiation or anything. I did 6 months of radiation, 6 months of chemotherapy. I worked every day. Wow. I'm telling you, I don't know what they were giving people back then, but when I hear the stories today, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in today's society having breast cancer, because it's horrendous, the stories that I heard.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, I went to work every day. I went to work in the morning, I took off early in the evening, went and got my chemo and my radiation, and then I went home. I never got for anything.
Yes. Well, do you think that that strength that you have and not really even knowing what to expect, because have you experienced maybe talking to some other breast cancer survivors because of what you do with Geri Speak, and you're very, transparent about your breast cancer journey? Do you think sometimes it's because of sometimes the stigma that people hear? They have an expectation of, oh, I'm gonna lose my hair, oh, I'm gonna throw up. And then we know that manifestation comes a lot of times because of what we're thinking and feeling, right?
Right. What we put out in the universe is what comes back to us. So basically, I decided, my first thought when I got the diagnosis was, why me? And then immediately I said to myself, why not me? Would I want it to be somebody else? And so I took that kind of like feeling of, oh my God, and I turned it inside and I said, there is a lesson and there's a message in this for me. And I just changed my whole attitude about my whole life, and I became a brand new person because of the breast cancer.
Yes. I like how you said you went on the inside and you turned it, you made it work for your good, right? Romans 8:28 tells us all things work together for the good.
Exactly.
Right? But we might not see that.
Huh?
Go ahead.
My doctors would always tell me to visualize the cancer cells being eaten up. So I used to do visualization about the cancer being eaten up and not taking over my body.
Okay, there's another key. And your doctor shared with you, because there's some, and not all, but there's some in the medical community. Sometimes, as we listen to them, there's no encouragement for better. It's, let's deal with what's happening right now. And here's these medicines, and and then again we read and we see all of the side effects, and then we bring that into our body. For your doctor to tell you, think about those cells being eaten up, that is phenomenal. And I'm sure that's what you probably hung on to as well to get you through the process.
Yeah, and I kept, and I also kept saying, the studies show that if you make it to 5 years, so I was apprehensive for the first 5 years, because the studies show that if you make it to the first 5 years, then you're good and you're cured and everything. But then after I got past that 5 years, I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? Nobody can say when you're cured except God, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years.
Yes.
I used to live thinking that I was going to die. But now, after a while, I was like, Geri, why don't you live like you're gonna live?
Yes. So you started making plans. So what were those first plans you made when you decided you were gonna live and not die? What were the first plans you made?
The first thing I did is I bought me a house. I never thought I could own a home, so I bought a house. I bought a house at age 32. Matter of fact, I was 6 months pregnant with my second child when I closed on my home.
Woo.
First thing I did. I never thought I could. So I was like, I'm going to do everything that I thought I couldn't do.
Yeah. That is awesome. So did you have a list or, and started checking it off? No?
No, I didn't have a list. I didn't have a list. It's just things kept coming to my mind that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And so you didn't let your situation, you didn't let your illness. Yeah, I said you didn't let your situation, you didn't let your illness, you didn't let what your doctor said, you didn't let, you were pregnant, you were 6 months pregnant. None of that stopped you. And so tell me, where did that drive come from? Because it had to come from somewhere. You had to have had it before the cancer. Where did that come from?
I have always been a person of faith. I've always been a churchgoer ever since a little child. I mean, I was baptized at age 12, so I always believed in the Lord. So basically, my strength came from my faith in God. It's just that it grew more and more every year as I watched him use me and use that situation to help other people.
Wow. All right. And so before you were on stage and before you wrote your book, so you were always encouraging other people to get over and through?
No, not necessarily doing that. I had faith, but I wasn't practicing out loud like I am now.
Okay. So that faith that you had, what was the seed of that faith? Because you were going to church and you studied, tell me where the seed came from of that faith you had.
It was what the church was teaching me, because I wasn't even studying the Bible at that time.
Okay.
I started the Bible after I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay. So the seed came from faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that seed was planted by you hearing.
By me hearing.
Yeah. So what made you transition from just hearing? Now you said once the breast cancer came, now you started studying. What made you make that leap to, okay, because some people, they'll get a diagnosis or something traumatic happens in their life. That doesn't necessarily turn them to start getting into that scripture themselves. What did that for you?
The biggest thing that changed my whole world was the fact that I had my second child 2 years after I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I told my doctor that I was pregnant. He said, you really shouldn't have gotten pregnant as a breast cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm. Took
those words, and I said to myself, this is where God could have taken my life 2 years ago. But instead, he gave me life.
Yeah.
That built even more onto my faith and my change other people's lives.
Yes, yes. Well, at this point, I want to remind everybody that I'm Valerie Gilchrist, and this is Esther's Purpose. We are broadcasting through WYTV7 out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and my guest is Miss Geri, and we are just really enjoying your story. I want you all, our listeners, to follow and like us on Facebook. You can follow and like WYTV7, and you can also follow and like Esther's Purpose on Facebook. So you can send me a message, you can ask me questions, you can invite me to come and do what I do here on WYTV7 at your location, whatever that's needed. But I thank you for your sacrifice of you just discussing this with us, because here at WYTV7, we're a nonprofit organization, and we do accept donations. And if you'd like to sow a seed, we would truly, truly appreciate that seed that would be sown. Even $5, you'd be surprised how far $5, from doing what you do with Geri Speak. $5 goes a long way. So don't ever think that your seed is too small, because that mustard seed can grow a huge tree. And so, we want people to know that, because we want to continue to impact lives here. So that money goes towards us broadcasting nationally and internationally all across the world. So thank you so very much, from hearing us. Give us some things to leave with today, Geri. Give us some motivation, some courage that, where you got your courage from to keep going for our listeners.
My favorite scripture is what you've already talked about, is Romans 8:28, that all things happen for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And I truly believe that I am called according to his purpose. I know that I love the Lord. And I always tell people that as long as you don't panic, you can find the positive. And I also tell them that everything that you are going through is to help you get to the other side so that you can bring somebody else through. So when my situation, I know it is not all about me. I cannot say, why is this happening to me? I'm a better person than this person or that person. I'm a good person. Why is God doing this to me? It's not about that at all. It is for the greater good of the world. And whatever I go through, it's going to help me tell somebody else how to get through what they are going through.
Wow. Now that is awesome. So you never focus on yourself.
No.
I know it took me a long time for me to get there where, you know, I was, oh, poor me, you know, because I didn't talk to people. And a lot of times what happens is when we don't connect with other people and talk to other people and hear their stories and hear things that is as tough as our situation might be, if we are in relationship with other people and talk to them, you can actually get some real encouragement because you say, you know what, I did go through this, but wow, you know, Geri went through that. After all of that she experienced young, wow, she then, you know, she was attacked with breast cancer. And so, you know, it encourages us to listen and hear. And that's what's so phenomenal about WYTV7 and Esther's Purpose. We want to be an encouragement. I want to bring people on whose lives have actually taken turns and went down roads and went through things before they came who they are. If I just only know you from Geri Speaks, then your story might not impact me the way that it could, right?
Right. And these just little tidbits. I mean, it's so many stories in between those two.
Yes, give me another story, one that we can leave our audience with. Because again, this broadcast with WYTV7 is national, international. You don't know who you might be speaking to and what corner of the world they're at. So give us something, another nugget of something that can help someone else really have the courage to step up and walk through their tragedy.
I recall in 2015, I quit a full-time job that was 40 hours a week. And I was hired by another agency under the pretense that it was a full-time position, but I ended up only getting 20 hours a week. And I was told that I would not get a full-time position unless somebody quit. Now, this time when we had just gotten the clearance and everything for Obamacare, which is the Affordable Care Act. And here I was at a job that was giving me 20 hours a week, but they offered health care. But I couldn't afford the health care with the 20 hours a week. I had left the job that was full-time, 40 hours a week with good benefits, and I couldn't apply for Obamacare because they offered health care at my new job. I thank God that within 4 weeks, I was able to find a full-time position later on down the road. The person hired me on the spot, but I could have mentally just gone into another whole place once that happened. So I got spiritual counseling. I talked to my pastor at church and I was like, I can't believe this happened to me. You know, I had my little pity party for a few moments because we do that sometimes.
Yes.
God is not always the first person that we reach out to when we go through stuff, even though it should be. But there are counselors and there are ministers and there are teachers there to help us when we are overwhelmed by stuff that happens in the world. And I had one of those moments. But once the pastor came to my house and she talked with me and she showed me how much money I had in my savings account, we talked about that. She showed me how God was yet blessing me. She showed me places that I could go to get assistance if I needed it. I realized that I didn't even need the assistance. I had enough money in my savings account for me for 3 months and I never touched it.
Yes. How about that? How about the power of God and his hand has always been on your life that way? And sometimes we're going through things, especially if we're not rooted and grounded in that relationship, because sometimes it's not in the house. It's not with parents who are, or grandparents even, who are sowing those seeds, might not have ever even went in church. I know it, myself as a young child, my father was military and we traveled, so we weren't connected to, you know, and grounded in a church growing up. And, you know, so it was real difficult, you know, to do that. So I didn't really have any feelings about it one way or the other. But once he retired, there was a bus that came around on Wednesdays that actually picked up children. So even though my father wasn't an avid church goer or never really spoke about the Lord, and even my mom, I know I saw her Bibles and I know that she read her Bible and that she prayed, but we didn't have those conversations. We just kind of saw it. But when I started going there and I started seeing people love the Lord, and I wanted to know who is that? Who was that? But then, like you said, going through my teenage years, and you already have all of that stuff going on, I fell away from me. But that seed was sown all the way back then. So then when real trials started happening as a grown-up, it took me right back there.
Right.
To where I knew where my help was going to come from, because it wasn't coming from anywhere else. And just like you, those things that looked like a little bit, that really wasn't going to be enough to meet a need, that seed met that need and grew into even greater opportunities. And that's what I hear, you saying, that even though you left one job and they promised you that full-time pay and you were only getting 20 hours, and here I am and I don't have enough, but yet you still had enough. So it's awesome that we serve a God of more than enough, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times we won't walk away from a situation if we knew exactly what we were walking into. But see, I would have never left that full-time job because I was very comfortable there.
Mm-hmm.
Because God saw fit to move me to another job, even though it was only for 20 hours, that was that propelled me to where I needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Never left.
Yes, ma'am. So Geri, what I want you to do now is I want you to give our listeners, I want you to give them contact information from you. If they listen to your story and they said, you know what, I want to contact her, I want to share my story, I want to draw some strength from her or whatever, I want to know more about Geri Speaks, how do they contact you?
I'm basically, everything that I have, every social media platform is Geri Speak. So everything, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, is all under Geri Speak. My email.
So it's Geri Speak, not Speaks, because I keep saying Speak. Speak. It's Geri Speak.
No S. Geri Speak.
No S. Okay, great. All right, that's wonderful.
My email is Geri@gerispeak.com.
Okay, Geri@gerispeak.com. Wonderful, because we want people to be able to contact you just like we want them to contact us, because they can contact us through WYTV7.org. They can contact me through my Facebook page. They can even go to my website at Esther'sPurpose.org. So there's great ways for us to do that. So give us about a 2-minute. What encouraging words do you want to live with, that you want to leave with people about your story?
The encouraging word that I want to leave about my story is, where you are from does not dictate where you will end up at. As long as you write the vision and you make it clear, it may not always happen the way that you want it to. There may be some bumps along the way, but God is still in control. And remember that your highway is always under construction. Don't be upset if there's a yield sign. Don't be upset if there's a stop sign. Don't be upset if there's an accident along the way, because God could be saving you from something that you don't need to go to.
Amen.
Thing that you ask for, and thank God for what you have.
Amen. Thank you so much, Geri, for being on Esther's Purpose broadcast through WYTV7 out of North Carolina. We so appreciate your sacrifice for today. Thank you so much. Again, we've been talking with Geri Mason from Geri Speak. Thank you so very much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye, Geri.
Bye. Thank you.